District number 5, yay.
Yay! This is the
And
winning slate here.
we did open it up to all the candidates, but Mr. Johnson did not respond. So we have the Democratic candidates. What I'd like to do is just kind of give them all about 5 minutes to introduce themselves, tell us a little about yourself, and then what we'd like to do is then open it up to question and answers. Now, I do have a question of the people in the audience. If you don't mind being filmed and broadcast, I guess that's by a show of hands. Does anybody not want that to happen? Okay.
Broadcast them, that's what.
So very good. This will be broadcast at some point on our Revolution Helena's TV show. Yeah.
Thank you.
And that's on Helena Civic TV. And so we'll start. Well, I put everybody's name down there, but we'll start with how about a flip of a coin? Because I don't know what you guys.
Makes no difference to me.
No, they use coins anymore, do we?
Just
Then let's
go.
Tyrel go and we'll go this way.
Alright. Trump's North Korea summit thing.
Okay, Tyrel,
Go
it's
for
up
it.
to you.
Hello everybody, my name is Tyrel Suzor-Hoy. I was born and raised here in Helena. I'm a 5th generation Montanan, and I currently live in a home that's been in my family for over 100 years. I have strong ties in this community, and that's one of the reasons why I'm running for the Public Service Commission. I saw what they were doing, and I saw how those decisions were affecting Montanans. I talked to so many people, from Shodo to Cutbank, all the way to Kalispell, and almost every single one of them struggles to pay their energy bill on a month-to-month basis. The CEO of Northwestern Energy makes $1.5 million a year, and the top 4 executives make $3.5 million combined, with the median income of a household in Montana about $40,000. That's a huge gap. And it's absurd that we see these giant raises in our energy bills for the last 5 years, while the CEO's salary has also increased for the last 5 years. I think there's a trend there. And we have a commission that seemingly does anything that Northwestern Energy wants them to do, and they don't really even think about it. In 2010, there was a giant rate hike because coal strip number 4 went out of service. Well, that cost Montanans about $20 million for that 7 months that it was out of service, because it's written into our energy bills. We were paying for it, it wasn't operating, and because they had to go and buy energy on the open market, they increased our rates, and the Public Service Commission just allowed it without a second guess. That type of decision making that has no even forward thinking at all about how it affects us or how it's going to affect the future of Montana is unacceptable. We have a commission that just this last summer decreased the contract lengths for renewable energy sources from 25 years to 5 years. I mean, that's devastating. There's so many small businesses got hurt with that, and they didn't think twice about it. And they ended up reversing that decision and putting it back up to 15 years. It shows that they have no idea, 1, what they're doing, and 2, they don't know how their decisions affect the future. They don't have a long-term plan, and they don't really think about it. The only thing they think about is their pockets. And frankly, I'm sick and tired of that. We have to put a stop to this corporate interests only. We have to think about what's best for Montanans. I work for the Montana Department of Transportation in infrastructure design and development. I do a lot of roadway safety and making sure that we're using the best quality materials. And I deal with federal regulations on a daily basis. And I'm prepared to walk into this role and apply my knowledge directly day one. I can walk in and will know what's going on. I can read the federal regulations that the current commission is ignoring. They're not making sure that Northwestern Energy is upholding the PURPA regulations that's handed down from the Clean Power Plant Act. They're not buying as much energy on the grid as they need because it's not economically viable for Northwestern Energy to do that. And those words are misplaced and they're buzzwords. We need to make sure we're moving towards renewable energy sources. We have so much opportunity here in Montana for wind, solar, geothermal, and we have so much hydroelectric energy that's not being utilized. We have dams that don't have the generation that they could have. And hydroelectric dams are about 1/4 of the operating costs of the current coal power plants in Colstrip. Colstrip 1 and 2 are closing down in about 2022. We need to have a plan to put that energy back on the grid, or we're going to be in a situation where we might not have the energy we need to meet those peak loads. I will always think about the people in my decisions and not corporate interests. I'm Tyrel Suzor-Hoy, and that's why I'm running for the Montana Public Service Commission, because it's important that we stand up for us. So, I think that's, I don't know how long that was.
I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna adhere to the second,
Sometimes they're
but
like real adamant about it.
there's 3 of you. If you go over a minute, if there were 10,
Right. But I think it's very important that when Northwestern Energy rewrites their 20-year plan this coming fall, we have a voice on there that is considerate of what those future impacts are going to be. And if we don't have someone that is going to advocate for renewable energy, it's not going to get put on there. Northwestern Energy is going to have their first rate case in over 20 years. And we need to break down how they're charging people. I've heard conversations from people, and they've had their energy bills hiked from $500 to over $1,000 in one single month. And that sort of volatile price market is unacceptable. If people don't know what they're going to pay on a monthly basis and it's not at a steady rate, that hurts them.
Yeah.
And if they don't have the money that they need and they have to put it on a credit card this month, well, too bad for them. We get more money as Northwestern Energy, so
no, gotcha.
cut me off. Perfect. I thought I'd elaborate there at the end.
Right. Okay, and Mr.
Speich.
Yeah.
Henry Clay
Henry-
Speich. I'm running for number 5, and my purpose is to speak for Montanans. My voice is going to be the state of Montana and the people of Montana. I'm not going to be corruptible. My purpose is not to be bribed and to come to the table representing Montanans. My hope is that we bump off the Republican in the seat and put in a Democrat, one that speaks for Montana, and that's more important to me than anything. I was born in Washington, D.C., and I came across to California with the Cuban Missile Crisis. My dad was involved with that. We left the fallout shelter and moved to Southern California. I was born in '53, so I'm 65 right now. And I grew up for the 9 years in California, then met a gal bicycling and came to Montana. And I was a UPS driver here for 17 years, working hard and gaining the trust of the neighborhood. And I've been pretty much in everybody's office. And I would extend my wishes that you would trust me to be uncorruptible and to represent Montana in an honest way, in a democratic way for District 5. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Andy Shirtliff. A lot of you I know I've had the opportunity to work with over the last few months when it came to the Women's March and for the Rise Together rally that we actually planned right here in this room together. So thank you for having the opportunity to come speak with you tonight. A little bit about me. I was born in Butte, Montana, the town that understands what it's like when a company has a monopoly and they've completely devastated an entire community and that is still digging themselves out of it, and they've got a pit full of acidic water that they have to clean up, and it's filling up every day. I was adopted. I was raised, I spent about 2 years in Polson, Montana, which is in Lake County, which is a part of the district. I grew up in Kalispell, Montana. That's where I went to school. I went to community college up there. My parents were blue-collar workers. My dad ran a grocery store. And my mom is retired, but she still works because she can't afford it. I hear every time we talk on Sundays, I hear about her bills. I hear that, I'm officiating my sister's wedding next weekend. And she's like, I don't know if we can afford to go, but we're gonna go. We're putting it on a credit card. Just as well as what they were talking about is some of the bills go on those credit cards too. So I understand what it's like when people are affected by bills, whether you're someone who's paying student loans, or whether you're a senior citizen, or whether you're a small business. Over the last 5 years, I've worked with small businesses. I've been a small business advocate for the Governor's Office of Economic Development. I worked with Governor Bullock. I've worked with small businesses. I've worked with individuals. And before then, I worked with Governor Schweitzer. I worked with John Bollinger, a Republican. I worked as his senior advisor. We've worked on different commissions in rural Montana that deal with work, labor, deal with traveling all across this state. And I'm the only person on this slate who's actually been to Colstrip and met with the leaders of Colstrip. I met with them last fall. I met with those folks to talk about what's next for them. And I firmly believe that they have to be at the table. We can't just force something on them. Yes, the infrastructure is there, but there are people that have worked with their hands their entire lives. It's not going to be coding that they're going to want to do. They're going to want to build. They're going to want to create. They're going to want to stay within the industry that they're familiar with. And I want to help that as commissioner. Because we have a commission that doesn't understand that. They've put all their money on black. They put all their money on oil and coal. While they've shrunk contracts for renewables. That's why the Public Service Commission has been sued 3 times in the last year by a company called Cypress Creek that has a facility just north of Billings. They've been in the newspaper. I intend to unlock innovation in Montana. I've worked with innovators. I've worked with people who've tried to harness the energy of water or the energy of algae in Missoula. I've worked with folks in rural Montana. I've lived in 3 of the 6 counties that District 5 represents. When I go out and talk to people on the doors, you get 2 camps of people. One, those who don't know what the Public Service Commission is, but what they do is they oversee your water rates, your sewer rates, your electrical rates, telecommunication rates. And one decision by them could change your life like the flick of a switch. So I want to bring more transparency to them because they've had a god-awful website for a long time. It's really hard to watch their videos. It's like watching a court case on closed-circuit TV. But also, too, I want to bring more accountability. They oversee the largest public utility company in the state. That's Northwestern Energy. Northwestern Energy has got a friend in the Public Service Commission. Every time there's a rate hike, they say, sure. They rubber stamp it. The first statement from Brad Johnson this year on Twitter was, rates are going up. That's just the way it is. That's not okay with me. Because if they're going to increase, they want to come with us to the commission and increase their rates, they better have a darn good reason. Whether it's investing in their efficiencies, because there's a solar farm on the other side of the divide from here, and then there's 2 solar farms here in this county. One cost $5 a megawatt hour, and the one here in town costs $1.25. We are paying for those inefficiencies, and I will not stand for that. Also, too, we need to unlock innovation. We're the land of big skies and big opportunities. We have wind, we have solar, geothermal, hydro. We should be improving our battery storage and so on. We should be putting up LED lights on our streets. We should be putting LED lights in parking lots and so on. But we need to keep moving towards that way. I've been endorsed by Rob Quist. I've been endorsed by 2 former public service commissioners in Ken Toole and in Tom Schneider. Tonight, I'm open to questions, or if you want to talk one-on-one, I'm open to hearing your ideas. But I'm asking for your vote. If you haven't voted already, I'd love to have your vote. If you've already voted, thank you very much for participating. And my name's Andy Shirtliff, and I'm running for Public Service Commission. Thank you.
Thank you all. I guess now would be the time to open up any questions or anything that you guys want to ask each other. It would be also good. Let's keep it clean. Other than that, I think anybody have any questions? I know Matt, this is near and dear to your heart.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I guess the biggest concern, I mean, obviously, is the PURPA contracts at this point. I mean, I guess I wouldn't say that, at least from my perspective. We're talking about renewable energy. I mean, that's pretty critical for renewable energy. I mean, their justification for reducing those, I mean, I think was pretty flimsy. I don't know if we need to go into that. You say, okay, well, they extended it to 15 years now, down from 25, but that, I'm not sure if that's all of them or just that particular project. And I try to learn about how the Public Service Commission and contracts and stuff works, but I'm more of an engineer than a lawyer, and so, and that type of thing, so I'm trying to get involved, so, maybe you could just talk a little bit about, talk some more about the
Yeah.
contract issue, and I know that's a national issue too. Idaho was doing some funny things, but was that, to me, that seems like an attempt to, like you say, bet on black, extend the coal power instead of, because as soon as we start putting wind in, they get wind for free, they're buying less from Colstrip, that means Colstrip is losing more money and going out of business sooner. So am I wrong there, or, I'm just interested in your thoughts.
Well, I think that it's very clear what they're doing. If you undermine the funding for a qualifying facility, then they can't get in the game at all. And a bank will not loan money to an organization or a business that takes so much capital up front, that takes a while for it to get profits. Let's say, you have a 5-year contract, let's say, and you get $5 million from the bank. Well, it takes 5 years to get you profit. There's absolutely no way you're gonna pay that money back. I've talked to lenders, and they basically will not loan any capital under 20-year contracts. So even a 15-year contract, while it might sound great, it's still undermining their ability to get the funding they need. And if you don't give funding to an organization for it to become market viable, then yeah, you're betting against it 100%. And the only way that we can get more renewable energy on the grid is to build more qualifying facilities and bring it into local communities, like the solar farm out on Lincoln Road, or the wind farm up in outside of Shelby, Montana. Those type of facilities are what we need to be investing in, and that brings it back to us, brings it back to the people, and all of a sudden we have the power, and it's undermining the ability of Northwestern Energy to control everything.
Go ahead.
I'm not an engineer nor a lawyer, but I am honest. And what I'm bringing is my ability to be honest, and I expect to listen to the people that are in the know, that are state workers, that represent us, that are smarter than I am on the facts. My heart is not with coal, but I also realize you can't pull a plug when people are using electricity. And so my intent is to give an honest response for Montanans.
I think you hit it right on the head. It's being honest, but also too, it's that transition period that we have to go through. You can't switch gears without hitting the clutch. We have to look at how do we set those people up with retraining. I was part of the group that got the $4.3 million for Colstrip when it came to their retraining. I've spoken to folks there that belong or that help out their schools that say, well, why isn't the state understanding that it's coal and what that does for our schools? We do understand. The problem is it's not a matter of supply. We've got plenty. We've got 26% of the coals of the world's coal reserves, and that's what it should be, as a reserve. Because what we ship out of state is about 40%, and the people who are buying that don't want to buy it anymore. It's a matter of demand in a market. The market is moving away from coal and oil. The people that buy our energy are looking for something cleaner. We've got the infrastructure in place. We can use it. We can put those people back to work over in Colstrip. But when you talk about stuff like PURPA, which came out of the oil crisis in '73, and then in 1978 when Jimmy Carter came up with the idea for PURPA to basically reduce consumption from foreign entities and improve production. However, we've gone away from the original intent of that, is to make our own energy, not just from one or two sources, but from all of them. We have a lot of potential here in Montana. It's not just good for our environment, it's great for our economy. Those are the jobs of the future. Whether it's going to be high tech or whether it's going to be high tech manufacturing, you're going to see a lot of blue collar and white collar jobs come out of energy. Montana should be the national leader when it comes to energy development, and we will be if you have a public service commission that doesn't just favor one industry or one company. The thing is I think the idea of decentralizing your energy. I think the idea of big energy, such as like coal plants that cost millions of dollars every year to operate, that they're just throwing money at right now, and it's a complicated ownership anyways, but I think you're going to start seeing more communities, more counties, more Indian nations producing their own energy, more individuals. And I think Northwestern Energy's role is probably going to shift to be a part of that. However, I think we should have the independence to be able to produce our own energy. But the way PURPA is set up, we allow a type of monopoly to occur. So if Northwestern Energy buys those dams with Montana Power retirement money, like they did, the state's basically based on PURPA, we can't allow another company to build a dam in front of or behind it. We say, okay, you get to produce the energy off of this dam. We get to look at your books. And you guys hit it on the head. They make way too much money. Their shareholder, or the people who sit on their board, make $200,000. I think the least paid person there does. And I think, I don't want to accuse the PSC of being, they've been a rubber stamp, let's just say that. They've wanted to be big, really big pals with Northwestern Energy. And I think Northwestern Energy, they're starting to look at things like net metering. They're starting to look at things like solar and wind. However, we need to encourage that. However, we need to encourage it from other entities as well.
What kind of access does the public have to the Public Service Commission? Sort of try to keep track of what's going on with them, but I'm not aware that there is any regular meetings or get-togethers where they invite citizens in for input.
I think they enjoy that. I think they like being in that anonymity right there.
Well, do they get to decide that nobody has access to them, or
No,
how
they're
do we obtain access?
All of the meetings are public.
Yeah.
They just don't advertise, they sort of fly under the radar.
Uh-huh.
And most people in Montana don't even know what the Public Service Commission is, like Andy said. And you find out that people don't really have a grasp of how their lights get turned on and how all of that works and how all of that regulation flows together, which is disheartening. And I think that it's sort of almost a special interest group within the government. It makes it so that people don't really understand how this thing works, and they don't really make it accessible for anybody. Even though it is accessible to all of us, I think we need to, as Montanans, step up and start to learn a little bit more about it and create that transparency, as it were.
How often do they meet?
Every Tuesday, 9 o'clock.
It's shameful the way it's been hidden. It's shameful the way
Where do they
Roscoe,
meet?
excuse me,
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say, where do they meet?
They meet right by the mall. There's a building right behind Jorgensen's.
17 Cross.
Yeah.
The bottom of that parking garage there.
Yeah.
Are there notes posted, the meeting?
Yes, all the notes are posted. There is video. Unless you have a Mac, you can't access it.
I believe this is the first three-way primary in District 5 for the Democratic side ever.
And we gotta win.
Which
Yep.
is it's in itself saying something. We are starting to step up, and people are starting to pay attention a little bit more. So
What kind
I'm
of
very
term
excited.
is it? A term?
So they're 4-year terms,
Four.
and there's 2 terms, and then you're termed out. And this is Brad Johnson's first term, and he will be running for his second.
And there's
How about
5
the others?
districts. There's 5 districts right now. District 5 right now, the fighting fifth, and then you've got District 1, which is 19 counties. But Fred, was it Thompson, the gentleman who's the reason and the blame for deregulation in the state of Montana, drew the district lines for the PSC a few years back. But they meet every Tuesday, and I agree. I think that transparency is absolutely key to having a PSC that's actually public, that's public to you. And I've maintained this, that I'm going to keep open a sense of transparency. I'm going to maintain a website, a public email, a public phone number. And if you do have questions after this, feel free. I'm always available, just like I'm sure these guys are too. But we were asked on a TV, we did a TV interview with Mike Dennison, and he says, so what qualifies you to handle all these different things, these rates? I said, well, Mike, just like you and just like your viewers, I'm a ratepayer too. I get those bills every month. I talk to my folks who are senior citizens that are partially retired but still have to work to pay the bills and be able to get health care. I see those rates. You know, I've been spending a lot of time with my girlfriend and I really haven't gone home very often. But when I do, I get my bill and I said, $70? I haven't even been here the last month. So that to me is concerning, is that we need somebody who, number one, understands that, but who, two, is gonna fight for people, that understands that we need someone who's gonna be in there that's gonna be transparent, hold Northwestern Energy accountable, and then stop moving the goal line for a lot of these companies that could be really successful. That you have folks that are willing to invest in these things, but not take a second look if it's not for 10 years or 15 or 20 years. I've spoken to the folks at Naturator that run a facility just up in Toole County that are based out of San Francisco. Companies want to invest in Montana because we have some of the best wind and some of the best land that we can develop for solar. But they don't want to come here unless they've got a very strong or a very secure and level regulatory environment. I've spoken to these folks, and they're not interested in coming here. They need a government that's going to work with them, not try to hold them back. And I think that's what you're seeing now, is that you've got a PSC that's holding you back from putting up a wind turbine in your own yard or some solar. Because with the recent cuts in state government and from the federal government, communities, tribal nations, and counties are really struggling right now to find revenue. This is an opportunity for those counties and communities actually to diversify their revenue streams, to have renewable energy in their own counties. I think this is going to be something that could be really beneficial.
I'm Henry Clay, and I want to respond to that. I think it's very important that we become watchdogs, one of us three, for the public of Montana, because it has been a rough ride. When we were sleeping, back in the 90s, deregulation came about with the help of Governor Roscoe and the Republican legislature, and we lost a great advantage. Something that was ours, they gave away for a pocket full of money.
Right.
Quite a bit of money, but a pocket full of money compared to generations of the help it would have brought to all of us. I'm going to be there to bark, to yell to the media, and I'm going to ask the media to start attending best we can, along with Rebecca and the Revolution, to start attending to our needs as a public, not the damn needs of somebody's fat wallet. I'm going to ask you to push the Republicans away from the table and start speaking for us. Thanks.
Real basic question.
Yes.
For each of you. Your feelings about fossil fuels and global warming.
I think it's real. Henry Clay, I think it's real. Climate change is a growing concern. We have to keep the lights on. Fossil fuels are a nasty way. We mess our own nest. And it's time we start saving the earth instead of using it. But we have to keep the lights on. There's people with respiratory that need electricity. There's people that like to read at night. It's a real deal. We need warmth. So I will go with what the state tells me. They're smarter than me. They'll teach. But I will be honest and I'll speak out for the common good. Thank you.
I work in a very science-based industry, and I think the science is very clear on climate change, that is absolutely occurring, and it's happening at a quickening pace. And if we don't do something about the way that we consume fossil fuels, not only in energy, but across the board, as far as production for vehicles and production for roadways and all these things that use that crude oil, we're going to be in a really bad situation where our earth is becoming unlivable. And in a place like Montana, it's sometimes hard to see because we are surrounded by such a beautiful area with such gorgeous scenery, but it could go all up in smoke just like that. We saw it this last summer with all the fires, and we see it with the floods right now. And if these changing climates aren't impacting us on a daily basis, they're gonna impact us in the future. And we have to do something about it. We have to have a forward-thinking leader that's gonna take the conception of global warming and push it forward. You know, we have to think what's gonna happen to our children, what's gonna happen to our grandchildren, how are we gonna provide them with an earth that's habitable. And how are we gonna do that with the energy grid? We need, I'm gonna repeat myself here, we need to move towards renewable energy sources. And not only is it economical, it's environmentally sound, and it is the future. We see it with countries like Iceland that are almost completely geothermally ran, and we see it with the completely renewable energy ran trains in places like Norway and Sweden. Those places are innovating at a level that we're pushing back strictly because of regulatory demands. People sit on these regulatory boards that not a whole lot of people care about, and they impart their own personal bias in their decision making, and it's hurting us. It's hurting our planet, and it's going to continue to do that unless we put a stop to it. Montana has 1/4 of the entire nation's fuel reserves, and that's absolutely true. But it's not something that we need to be digging up. We have to move towards it. And we see that coal companies in Montana haven't been profitable for several years now. Talon Energy loses about $10 million in their stocks every year. Those are absurd numbers. And we almost gave the Talon Energy $100 million in this last legislative session just to stay in Montana for a few more years. And if that's not a key, or if that's not a sign that we're moving away from it, I'm not sure what is. So I'm going to end this with renewable energy is what we need to move towards.
Some of our top industries in Montana are agriculture and tourism. Every year, we have 12 million people that visit our great state, that spend $3.4 billion in our economy. That's new money. They come here for our splendor, for our incredible outdoors and our public lands. They don't come here for our smokestacks. They don't come here for our mining. They come here because of our amazing outdoors. Our outdoor recreation industry brings in $7 billion and employs 70,000 people. What keeps them coming back, what keeps those people coming back, are people, are you, us Montanans. We're gracious hosts in that way. But the 1 million people that live here, we the people have a constitutional right to a clean and healthful environment. It states right in our Constitution. And I will fight for that, because those 12 million people and the 1 million people that live here don't live here because of the smokestacks. Yes, we need to look out for those folks when 1 and 2 close down in the next 4 years. Talon Energy sat right in a room with these folks saying if we just believed enough, we could keep the lights on. But the thing is we got to help them transition. And we got to find energy sources that are going to make up the slack when 1 and 2 go down. Energy sources that are going to be, that are going to make up the slack for that. But when it comes down to it, all those words aside, climate change is real. I take a lot of pride growing up in the Flathead Lake. I learned how to water ski on that lake. I spent my summers in Glacier National Park. I take a lot of pride, and I get tingly about it when I start talking about how incredible Glacier National Park is. When there were legislators who were talking about putting a nuclear power plant just outside of it, I get upset about the idea of two pipelines just right outside, within 8 miles of the border of Glacier National Park, that cross the watersheds that go into 3 different water bodies, into the Pacific, Gulf of Mexico, and the Hudson Bay into the Arctic Ocean. I take a lot of pride in Glacier National Park. It brings people here. I will fight for it. And climate change is real. When they used to call it Glacier Park, for a reason. Now it's hard to find those glaciers thanks to man-made caused climate change. We have to do something about it. Is it too late? I don't think so. And I think you're starting to see people on the West Coast who buy our energy are looking for a cleaner source. We can provide that. We have the infrastructure. They don't want to build new power lines. They don't want to install new substations. They want to keep what we have. But we can put other types of electrons on there, and I intend to push for that, because we have a PSC that keeps moving the goalpost and moving the end zone or the target for those renewable companies in favor of one industry or one company. We need someone in there that understands that, but it's going to work for the people and be a voice for the people.
So there are 5 commissioners?
Yes, sir.
That's correct. So I'm wondering about your strategies. I'm guessing that the 3 people here are among the more progressive minds on the commission. I'm guessing that there aren't a lot of progressive people running for a commission in other areas. So what are your strategies now for trying to make a difference in what probably will be an overloaded commission?
Henry Clay. My strategy is to make it a public forum where, as well as we can, the state of Montana people recognize what's going on. So when the fan's blowing it, people know about it. The big danger today is corporations are getting bigger and bigger and getting personal rights of humans, and they're outlasting generations of people. We need to maintain our representation. We need to be public. And my intent is to do that. I'm going to bark loud and speak loud and encourage people with the cameras and with the pens to come forward and pay attention. So my biggest job is going to be running out in the public and informing, not sitting at the meeting with people in ties and whatnot, making deals for wallets. Thank you.
I heard a quote one time that said, if you're a public service commissioner and you work more than 10 hours a week, you're the hardest working one there. And that is very unfortunate. My plan is to listen to the staff recommendations, because the staff is highly trained, they know exactly what they're talking about, and they've opposed just about every single decision that the Public Service Commission had made. The Public Service Commission shoots right off the hip, and they don't have any basis in what they're doing. But if we listen to the staff at the Public Service Commission and put forward smart, common sense regulations that advocate for the future, I think everybody can get on board with that. And the more comprehensive of a plan you have going in day one, the more things you can get done. I want to make sure that we start doing things that are economical and environmentally sound. And the way to do that is listen to the experts.
I've had an opportunity to meet with some of the folks that do work there. I can't divulge names, but that's the sentiment that they gave me as well, is that if you put in, about 10, 15 hours a week, you'll be right up there with some of the more knowledgeable. I shouldn't say some of the, because there was only one person that they named. But this year, District 5 and District 1 are up. There's a four-way Republican primary for District 1, running to replace Vice Chair Kavula. There's one Democrat who